So this video is regardless of timings, I don't think this video was going to be very easy to film in terms of emotions. I've tried at least probably 3 times to film the respective reviews for this particular video, and I would say it's both of these books in terms of things, how difficult they are to talk about given the subject matter and given some triggering issues in terms of what they're about and what they cover. So I'm going to try to do the best I can in the spectrum of this video to not get too emotional, because it is emotionally charged. And I'm going to give both a content warning as well as a general warning in comment section, because I know given the spectrum of online dialogue and discussion with the events happening between Israel and Gaza, I think a lot of people have heightened emotions about this, and I'm going to try to just be forthright in this video in terms of what my thoughts are with relation to the book that one of the books that I'm covering in this video. So let's leave it at that. So in terms of content warnings, be prepared for discussions of abuse with respect to guardianship abuse and other things, sensitive topics when it comes to The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. And be prepared for discussions of sexual violations, as well as graphic depictions of torture, among other things, with respect to minor detail by Adania Shibli. Let's go ahead and get rolling. And one other thing is I will be monitoring the comment section for this. I don't expect a lot of difficult dialogues, but I will tell you right now, if I see nonsense in my comment section, if I see any instances of Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian rhetoric, or anti-Semitism in this comment section, your comment will be removed and you will be blocked. I am not tolerating that kind of discussions in my space. This is my space. I am the president, I'm the emperor, I'm the king. If you know what movie that's from, bonus points to you, but just keep it cool. This is not going to be a comprehensive video for both of the sensitive topics that are discussed in this video, but it is an introduction, and I can link resources down in the description box for this video for your perusal in terms of finding information and things like that. So let's get rolling. Hi everyone, my name is Rose, also known as TA Summers. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a review of 2 books that I have read that I feel pretty confident about being able to reflect on the channel. I did discuss that I would be reviewing both of these books on the channel. I decided to do them together because I read them around the same time. There's really no other reason why they're grouped together other than that for timing. And I wanted to be able to discuss them at length for the spectrum of this respective video. So the first book that I'm going to review in this video is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. Very highly anticipated, very highly discussed memoir by Britney Spears. And the second book that I'm going to discuss is by a Palestinian author named Adania Shibli, and that book is Minor Detail, which is a very short read that I had the pleasure of being able to pick up, and it's won numerous awards and has had accolades, but you'll understand why in terms of the controversies for things, why later on I ended up picking up this book and ended up being able to discuss it on Goodreads, and wanted to feature it on the channel specifically for review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. So let me jump right into my review of The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. You might be asking, Rose, is there a particular reason why you decided to pick up this memoir? I knew that I wanted to in terms of this because I did grow up as a teenager during the time that Britney Spears had debuted, during that teen pop phase, late 90s, early 2000s. I wouldn't call myself a Britney Spears fan. I kind of think of Britney Spears in the same way that I do Taylor Swift, as well as Beyonce. It's not so much that I'm a fan, but I like a lot of their music, and I respect the body of works they've done over a progressive period of time. So there are definitely songs that I can say that I like by Britney Spears in terms of things. It's just I don't listen to a lot of her music as much as other people do. And in case you're wondering, if you want to know what my favorite Britney Spears song, it's Stronger. Yeah, that song has always stuck with me for a long time. So like I would say that that's probably my favorite song for her. I have a top 5 list. If I could probably put Toxic in there. I could probably put Till the World Ends. I could probably put in like a number of different songs. Drive Me Crazy, among other, and every time. Like I could say that's probably like 5 songs that I can think of off my head. Is that 5? I think I lost count just that quickly. I think that's 5. If I'm wrong, I will definitely put that in editing. I'll tell you if I missed one, then I'll definitely put it in editing for your reference. But those are some of the songs that I really enjoy. But I would say my favorite is Stronger. Knew that I wanted to pick up this book to be able to read fully through Britney Spears' experience, kind of figure out a little bit more about her life growing up, as well as other things in terms of what she had to say about some of the more difficult things that she has gone through in the past several years. So to kind of start give an overview of this, kind of recap like something that I had mentioned in terms of my reading of it on the channel before. This is something that I did pick up on audio. I had it on Audible. Audiobook narration is done by Michelle Williams. In the Spectrum, she does a wonderful job overall. Brittany actually narrates the introduction part, which is a very brief bit in the beginning of the book, and where she's reflecting on kind of like the overarching narrative for things before Michelle Williams takes over for the rest of the narrative. And Michelle does a really good job of really capturing Brittany's voice. How Michelle is emotional during certain parts of the narrative where it hits heavier in terms of some of the more triggering topics and the more emotional spaces where Britney is going through a lot, and just recounting it as best that she can in the spectrum of things. But it's a very short read. Like I would say, like it's just 5.5 hours on audio in terms of things. So this can take, you can read this in a day. I certainly did. It was not an easy read to pursue on a lot of things. And I'm not even just talking about the what she went through in terms of the guardianship abuse, conservatorship abuse that was done by her family. It's basically like recounting some aspects of her family life, talking about that, basically leading into how her career started, and progressively going through that. So I would say that we'll start with the first part of the book where she is talking about her family in terms of things. I think one of the things that stuck out to me was kind of tying in this history of abuse that was done by the people in her family, and especially to the women in her family, which was something that I did not know prior to picking up this book. I thought she really did a wonderful job of kind of like communicating like in terms of her love for her family, but also pointing out a lot of the dynamics that were between them and among them. Britney grew up singing at a very young age. She talks about her time on Star Search, and if you don't know what I grew up very, very little. Like I remember bits and pieces of Star Search, but it was not something that I watched at the time. I watched certain things, but it's very hazy in terms of my memory in terms of things. But the one thing to think about Star Search for people who don't know about it is that it was American Idol before American Idol was a thing, or The Voice before The Voice was a thing. It was a singing competition, or like a competition in terms of different acts competing against each other in terms of things. And it wasn't like it. They would usually have like people on the stage like competing against each other, and it would rank the, like, it usually would be about two acts, and like they would put them together, and they would have the audience vote on it, and then whoever had the highest amount of votes would move on or get the prize or what have you. So Britney talks about her time on Star Search, meeting Ed McMahon, kind of like feeling her first loss, like in terms of things, and like being emotional about it, and then going into how her career started, working with Max Martin, working with like in terms of the spectrum of Baby One More Time, which I did not, her respective experiences on the Mickey Mouse Club as well, which I remember since that era of the Mickey Mouse Club was around the time that I was growing up. So I remember distinctly watching Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Ryan Gosling, Kerry Russell, JC Chazé, like all of them, like basically doing the different skits and the singing and dancing and performing on the Mickey Mouse Club, which was a reboot of the old Mickey Mouse Club, which my parents grew up with. So with respect to how the book is structured, like she goes through each of the eras of starting from childhood with her family, going into her career, and just kind of like touching on the major highlights in her career, like starting with Baby One More Time, Oops, I Did It Again, like kind of like giving a few like behind the scenes moments in terms of like what her thought process and like how cool it was to be able to work with the people that she worked with. But you also get to know her relationships in more detail. I have to say that Britney shows a lot of nuance, does a great job of being fair to the people who she cares about, even in their mistreatment of her. Like, she is very, very fair. Probably even more fair than I would be if I were in the same situation for some things. I said in my review on Goodreads that I wanted to fight her family, like her mom, her dad, her sister Jamie Lynn, like just like some of the things that they did in the spectrum of things, even Justin Timberlake in terms of the things, as well as Kevin Federline. She talks about them in a way that is very loving and appreciative, while also pointing out some of the things they did to hurt her in the spectrum of this overarching memoir. How she struggled through certain time points in her life, her breakup with Justin Timberlake, and also I'm not going to go into too much spoilers in terms of some of the major points of things where like she reveals, but this was one thing that was revealed in her memoir that was particularly traumatizing to her. She was pregnant with Justin Timberlake's child, and she, since he was not ready to be a parent, and he communicated that, and they both made the decision together, she chose to have an abortion. And she talks in detail about the emotions and how hard that experience was, which really gut punched me when I read that particular section. Like I felt really horrible for her in terms of what she went through that. And then you see kind of like the lead up to where she broke down and was just in a really emotionally rough place, getting through all of these dealing with all these difficult emotions, and then having to performing wasn't the she wanted to have a break. She wanted to spend more time with her boys. She wanted to be able to do other things, and she was not given the room to do so within the spectrum of her family. And then when things went to a head, I completely understood, looking at the timeline, hearing her in the memoir talk about that specific experience when the guardianship started and how her father took control, that it really just it got under my skin when I read it. Like, it's heartbreaking and infuriating, and to say the least. Really, just being able to put context clues in terms of the timeline, since I remember seeing a lot of the coverage and a lot of the tabloids, and a lot of like the social sphere of that particular time was not kind to Britney, or even stars like Britney at the time, in terms of that happening. But just the whole conservatorship abuse, the way that she was still continued to continually made to perform. Some other aspects about this book that really just got under my skin when I was reading The Woman in Me. Britney, like, and I said this in my Goodreads review as well, Britney was not shy about how she felt betrayed by her family and shunned, to the point, and I quote this directly, she strongly believed that they wanted her dead. And that goes to show you, like, she communicates her love, like, for her family, like, in terms of, but she also does a great job of being able to say the way that they treated her was terrible. And and even during certain parts of the conservatorship, you hear about how they threw out some of her early writing. They made her work through the conservatorship despite wanting to take breaks during like tours and things like that. Even like when she mentions the Vegas tour, in terms of how she was walking, like there was the announcement of the Vegas residency, and she was made to walk out, but she kept walking. In terms of things, she talks about that experience and in terms of things, because she said she did not want to do it, and that was her way of rebelling and pushing back against her father and her family's wishes. In terms of things, she wanted to take a break, she wanted to be able to spend time with her boys, and you really feel that in the overarching narrative here in terms of how she felt during that time. And it's little wonder, like, in terms of how emotional and how difficult that time was for her. And so many like people ostracize her and ignored her pleas for wanting to do like just simple things, not even asking for much. So I definitely found myself cheering when it came to this particular line, and this is quoted directly from the audiobook, from the text itself. I made peace with my family, by which I mean that I realized I never wanted to see them again, and I was at peace with that. I was like, go ahead, girl, go ahead, yes. It's like, I'm glad that she was able to be able to come to that space in terms of being able to like let go and move beyond them. So I hope that she's in a better place now in terms of being able to have control over her own life. And I can say that this book was very evocative, definitely made me emotional in places where I read it, but I really appreciated the read. It's just devastating to hear about, and it's just like, no wonder she was upset in terms of things. And then not even that, being put on medication against her will, a number of different things, like seeing therapists who were really like just catering to the orders of her father and her family, and seeing how her family just really wasn't attending to her needs in the way that she needed them to. It's infuriating, to say the least. She goes through this pretty rapid fire. Like, there were people that had criticisms in terms of how quickly she kind of goes through certain sections of this book, but I kind of understand why she may not have chosen to dwell on certain details in that respective measure, because of how traumatizing they were. But she still gives a very good summary of events to kind of like get to kind of give context to like each era of where she was making music, what life stages she was going through, like the steps that were taken out of the conservatorship, and then being able to continue on in terms of things. I don't think this is going to be the only book that she pens, but it is a good starting point to be able to kind of like see Britney's experience, know who she is, know how her career started, know her thoughts on some of the different time points in terms of the music that she was making and the what she was creating and what ideas she had. And it was great to be able to see a behind the scenes and hear it from her distinctive voice. So I appreciated being able to see that side of Britney Spears and being able to read her memoir in this particular way. So I really enjoyed the overarching read. It was a difficult read, but I did enjoy being able to pick this up and being able to learn about her life in more detail. Some of it I knew, a lot of it, there were other pieces of it I didn't know, but I appreciated being able to read it. I believe I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, if I remember correctly. Yes, I give this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really appreciated the read, and I definitely think it's one of the stronger books that I've read in this respective year. I do know that it was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I really do hope that it wins for best memoir or autobiography. I really think she deserves it. I really do. And so that's my review of Britney Spears, The Woman in Me. Now we get into my review of the second book that I'm going to cover in this respective video. I am going to talk about the book Minor Detail by Adania Shibli, which was translated by Elizabeth Jacquet, and it was originally published in 2017. Now, to speak a little bit about this respective book and how I came across it, some of you may know that there was a New York Times article which highlighted the fact that Adania Shibli was to have received an award for this particular narrative at the Frankfurt Book Awards ceremony, but given the start of the conflict between Israel and Hamas, they decided to pull her work from being awarded at that particular ceremony. And I was of two minds of this when I first read that New York Times article, and you can kind of see the snippet that I posted here. I also posted about it on my Instagram at the time for things, because I remember being heated, because I'm like, for such an important work that has gotten several awards and much lauded praise, even if the book itself, and this was before I read it, deals with a lot of difficult topics, there is no reason to censor an author who wrote such a pivotal narrative, and an even timely narrative that should be able to be celebrated and given accolades and be recognized for what the literature does, and for the work that she did with this piece of literature. So I was upset hearing about that, and I even said that was a bigoted reason to yank it from the Frankfurt Book Awards. Now, there had been some competing narratives at the time, even during the time that particular article was written, thinking, some say, like, the article itself had said that Adania Shibli had consented, along with the organizers of the book fair, to kind of delay the ceremony, like, and do something different later. But there were also people who pointed out maybe she decided to do that because of, like, safety reasons and things like that, which kind of made me take a pause and say, like, oh, okay, so maybe I can kind of understand, like, that in terms of, like, wanting to be safe and being able to do it in a way that recognizes her fully. But then the publisher of Minor Detail in English had spoken out saying that the author did not consent to with the Frankfurt Book Committee. She wanted to speak on it. She wanted to be at the ceremony. She wanted to talk, but they did not allow her to do so. And the publisher came out swinging, saying like, "You need to print a correction in this stat," and definitely the New York Times had to retract that statement. But it was infuriating to me to figure out that she was treated in such a disrespectful way. And of course, that prompted me to want to pick up Minor Detail. And even it makes me want to pick up even more of her work as well, because she was done so terribly in terms of things. I just, that was not the way to go for the Frankfurt Book Fair. And there were several people who pointed out like the article like talking about that, which was translated from German, in terms of the unfairness of it, for like how they said they didn't censor the Israeli authors or speakers like that were coming to the Frankfurt Book Fair, but they chose to censor her, which that was a choice. That was absolutely the wrong choice in my opinion. But to speak on it in terms of talking about Minor Detail, I knew I wanted to do a video on this particular book to kind of speak to the moment in terms of being able to highlight the Palestinian experience, being able to highlight Palestinian authors and writers, and being able to continue to uplift their voices in what is undoubtedly a horrible time. I really, it's like, I have seen so much dialogue and images and footage of what is being done to the people of Gaza and the West Bank, and it horrifies me. It horrifies me in a way that I feel like, and I said before that like I've tried to film this respective video like multiple times, and every single time I've found myself emotional in terms of being able to talk about how horrible some of the things that have been occurring in terms of things that there are, like the Palestinian men, women, and children are starving, have no safe places to go, are being continuously bombed, have lack of access to food, to water, to electricity, to power, to internet access, very limited internet access in terms of things. And just it's no way to be treated in any respect. No one deserves that kind of treatment. No one at all. I think my overarching hope in the spectrum of this conflict is that there is a permanent ceasefire, that the hostages that were taken by Hamas are able to return to Israel, and that the Palestinian people are able to return home, be at peace, be able to get the supplies and the care and everything that they need in terms of being able to recoup. That's my very idealistic wish for peace to be able to be. I don't know when that will be, and my hope is that it comes sooner, especially for the level of suffering of the people of Gaza and the West Bank. Brave work that has been done by the Palestinian journalists, between the updates that Bisan, Motaz, Plestia, several different journalists who are doing the hard work on the ground, while also working through some of the same conditions that many of the civilians, and having lost so much in the spectrum of time. It's so I said this on my Instagram in terms of things. It's not that there are no words for it. There's too many words for it in terms of things. And even now I struggle to, you say, where do you begin to talk about the level of atrocities that are being committed in terms of things? And even hearing many of the prisoners of who were freed by Hamas returning to Israel, pleading with the Israeli government to stop the bombing, to make sure that people are able to return home, is just heartbreaking to listen to. It's I wish it would end myself. I truly hope and pray for a ceasefire and a return to peace, and an enduring peace that involves being able to return the land, the property, and taking care of the people of Palestine, Palestinians, without further violence. In terms of things, that is my wish. And it doesn't escape my notice of how this parallels events of colonialism that have been done across the world with respect to major powers who are in charge, who feel that they can disrespect different populations for the spectrum of land. It was done to Native indigenous populations of the Americas. It was done to Native indigenous populations of Africa, of Europe, of Australia, of numerous places across the world. And we're seeing that being perpetuated yet again by a country in the name of religion, when it's not specific to religion, because there are many Jewish people who are speaking out on how this conflict is wrong and how it violates tenets of the Torah and their religious beliefs and things like that. It's not something that I can speak on because I am not Jewish myself, but they're speaking up for the very distinct dehumanization and vilification of Palestinians as it is happening right now. And my heart breaks to see this continuing to go on, to see people cheering it on. I don't condone that at all in terms of things. I'm trying to condense this in my thoughts, as well as related to the events of minor detail, in the best way that I can communicate it, because it speaks to the moment in terms of how Palestinians are treated and how long this violence has gone on in that region for 75 years. For 75 years. And so many are calling for there to be peace there in terms of things, without the vilification of an entire group of people based on one group's actions. And there are so many things to say to how, and I'm holding, like, there's a lot of things that I can probably say in this video in terms of things that would make it very long and get into the heart of a lot of history in terms of things, which is beyond the scope of what I can do, but I can boost the resources of people who have been talking about this, and boost voices of Palestinians as well as Jewish people who have been talking about in terms of saying never again for anyone, in terms of the scale of the violence and the dehumanization that is being done in Gaza. And, you know, it's timely to talk about minor detail, because it does speak to the moment in terms of how Palestinians are being treated in the occupation. And I'm going to talk about specifically what this book does in terms of the narrative. It is partially based on a true story, is divided into two different narratives. The first part is the basis for the true story, and the second part is a fictionalized account that draws a parallel many years after the fact of what Palestinian life is like for a woman under the occupation. Let's talk about this book now. So the very first part of Minor Detail opens in the perspective of an Israeli soldier, and it's not quite clear specifically at first why the viewpoint is in the perspective of the Israeli soldier, but you follow him as he's kind of like going through his routine in terms of things. He gets bitten by a spider that is very graphically detailed in terms of how he treats his spider bite, and him sleeping in the tent and going about his day. But this is taking place during the 1948 Nakba, which is when 750,000 Palestinians were displaced from Palestine, and it showcases the soldiers coming across a 15-year-old girl in which she is horribly treated by the soldiers who end up capturing her. And you get into the scope of the narrative in terms of the Israeli soldier who is interacting with this girl, and how he interacts with her, and how the other soldiers interact with her in terms of just really dehumanizing her. There is implied sexual assault, rape. There is implied mistreatment, and then at the end of that respective first part of the book, you see the 15-year-old girl, Palestinian girl, murdered by the soldiers, and just it showcases how brutal they treated her in terms of things. And I definitely felt anguish and anger and a number of different emotions after reading that first part in terms of things. Fast forward to, I believe it's about the 1970s in the second part, where you're following an adult woman who is obsessed with the timeline in terms of when the Nakba happened, and she's trying to piece together the events of what happened previously. I think it's about 25 years later or so, if I remember correctly, in terms of the narrative. If I'm wrong, I'll put that in the notes of this video. But in Ramallah, the woman becomes fascinated to the point of obsession with this minor detail that she sees as a parallel, and she goes into the restricted area to be able to find answers and to this respective detail. And I'm not going to spoil the ending of Minor Detail in terms of what this woman goes through in terms of the second part of the story, because that part of it is really a bookend to the brutality and speaking to the moment of what this woman goes through in terms of what the occupation, the horrors of the occupation, the anxiety, and just a lot of different emotions in the spectrum of this. I thought it was very well written. I thought did a wonderful job of the writing itself is like just beautifully detailed and beautifully like easy to follow in terms of like the actual writing. But the events are definitely, it's a difficult read, even for being a short book, and I believe it's about 112 pages, so it's a very short read. I remember even for the audiobook, which is on what I listen to. I remember saying that like I wanted to pick it up and support the author, so I decided to use my Audible credit. Just under 4 hours, and it didn't take me very long to read at all, but it was just an emotional read from start to finish. And I think I really wish that Adania Shibli had had the platform to be able to speak at the book fair to the moment for this particular book, because it for a lot of people it may be just the very start to this overarching conversation about the Palestinian experience. And I do plan on picking up more Palestinian authors, reviewing them on the channel, reviewing books that both fiction and nonfiction, with respect to the channel, in terms of highlighting their experiences, the authors, as well as being able to uplift Palestinian voices for being able to showcase their art and the contributions that they've had, and some of which are autobiographical, some of which are speaking to just other things in terms of Palestinian culture and things like that, to be able to highlight on the channel. So I did really enjoy having the experience of reading Minor Detail. It's not a narrative that I could say that because of how emotionally heavy it is. It's something that I enjoyed for the content, but I appreciate the experience of reading Minor Detail, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to be able to read it. I usually say on this respective channel that I love being able to read. Like, part of my formative experiences is in reading, and love for reading is reading about people who have different experiences than myself. And I feel like this spoke to me, like, in a lot of ways, in terms of being able to highlight the experience of the true story, and meeting kind of like the parallels between the past and the present as it was for this respective character, and what she goes through in terms of her search for this Minor Detail. So I thought it was very well done, symbolically, realistically. I believe I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I definitely plan on reading more of the author's work in the future. So that is it for both my reviews on The Woman of Me by Britney Spears, as well as Minor Detail by Adania Shibli. Both of these books are like two of my favorites for this respective year. I rated them both 4.5 out of 5 stars, and definitely would recommend them. And I hope you enjoyed this video in terms of hearing my thoughts about both of these books. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be informed of when I post new videos. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I'll see you next video.